everybody and welcome back to Shephard's Permadeath Adventures. So we are on the 4th floor of this dungeon, and hopefully we'll find a few more floors yet. As I said in the previous one, I am very eager to find a 10 level floor dungeon. Or 10 floor dungeon. Sorry, not 10 level floor dungeon. That doesn't really make much sense now, does it? But anyway, yes, I'm hoping that there's a few more floors that we can get through. There's an old track nearby somewhere. I'm getting a high frame rate here, an unusually high frame rate for a floor I've only just entered. I wonder, is it a smaller one? We'll soon find out. Now, generally I can tell the size of a floor by the frame rate because, you know, the smaller floors have less detail. They have, you know, there's not as much to load, there's not as much memory usage because there's less monsters, things like that, excuse me. And so basically the frame rate is going to be higher. Like, it wouldn't be noticed on someone with a very modern gamer PC because the frame rate would be the same all the time, but for me it would be a bit different because I've an older and slower computer. So I reckon we might be on a small-ish floor. You do get the odd floor of dungeons that are very, very small. We came across one in a dungeon not too long ago, and that's going to get crushed. So I reckon this one might be a bit smaller, like, you know, maybe not too small, but, you know, medium size, not very big like we have been finding lately. But we'll soon find out. I might be wrong. I'm getting a few more frames than I usually get. I will admit that. So I reckon it's not quite as big as the floors that we have been having lately. You know, because the dungeon floors, they do differ in size. Like, you do get small ones, you get medium ones, and you get fucking great big ones as well. So they do, you know, they do differ quite greatly. Some of them are very, very small that you'd have finished in about 2 minutes. Some of them are massive that they could take nearly an hour to do. Some of them are medium, which might take half an hour, 20 minutes. It's just the way that the engine has built the dungeons. That's actually something I've never talked about, and it's something that I've been meaning to talk about. Actually, is how the engine works. Like, being a tester for Malevolence, you get a bit of an insight into how the engine works, and being someone that's you know that wants to make games and is sort of making his own stand when it comes to the game developing world. Being a tester for a game, it gives me a great insight into this, you know, and how the engine works, and you know, it's been a real experience for me. So I kind of understand how it works, how the engine works, to a point. Like, fucking hell, I'm really fucking walking on thin ice at the moment. And it's kind of a confusing one because, you know, there's been people that have sort of misunderstood how Malevolence works, and they've asked questions on the forums and things like that. I'm sure that anyone who's a regular on the forum has seen a couple of such questions, and people who have been asking about the engine. Basically, like, I am going to do a separate video on this, but I'm just today I seem to be on a rambling mojo run at the moment for some reason. But the Malevolence engine kind of runs differently to a lot of other engines. Let me kind of put it this way. There are the engines that you get that you just use and create your game using what that engine is capable of. Such engines are the FPS Creator engine, for example. You use the FPS Creator engine for what you require. It's a first-person shooter engine. It creates first-person shooter games. That's what you use it for. The Unreal engine is the same. It's just much more high-tech than something like, you know, something like the FPS Creator engine, or even Unity. And Unity is the same. You just make your game within that engine's capabilities. That's what these kind of engines are, and basically they go on and they license these engines out to indie developers and companies for, you know, a pretty hefty price. And the FPS Creator is much more, you know, affordable, in the sense that, you know, when it comes to games, you buy your model packs, so you only buy what you really need for your game, things like that. And the model packs are about 10 to 15 quid a piece, like euro. And, you know, you only need to use what you want, as opposed to buying an entire engine for about 1,000 or 2,000 euro, and you might not even use half of the stuff on it. But anyway, that is basically that kind of engine. Then you get the engines that guys build themselves. These such engines, for what they need, these such engines are the likes of id Tech 1, id Tech 2, right up to you know, the current id engines, which, you know, Quake, Doom, Doom 3, Quake 2, and all them have been made on. Like, I think id Tech 1 was the official Quake 1 engine. id Tech 2 was the official Quake 2 engine. id Tech 3 was Quake 3. id Tech 4 was Quake 4 and Doom 3, and so on and so forth. Or you've got the likes of the Serious engine, which the guys for Serious Sam make. It's basically an engine that is primarily for what they are looking for. Then you've got the likes of the Diablo engine, the engine that the person makes to make a randomly procedurally generated game. And basically they implement everything into the game, from items to things like that, and they basically program the engine to act on its own when it comes to items and making the levels. And they're basically creating an AI engine that makes the levels, that makes the items. They just basically tell it how to do it. They give it everything that it needs, from the pictures of the item, and what kind of stats are on the items and things like that, the sort of default stats, and then they just let the engine create the magic items from drops and things like that. But there's an awful lot of also default programming into it. Then you have Malevolence. Malevolence is an engine and a technology that has never been created before. Alex is the first person to ever make this kind of engine, and I call it an infinite engine. It's something that has never been done before. It's very, very unique. Like, never has there ever been created before an infinite world. There has been worlds created that might as well be infinite because they're just that fucking big. That would be your Minecraft, for example. They're just that big that they're, you know, you're never going to explore all of it. But it's not infinite. Malevolence is infinite. The technology was never there before. Alex is the first person to make an actual infinite world. And this is the beauty about this engine, is that everything that you see here, from, you know, the dungeons to everything, Alex has not hand-built any of the worlds that is in this. The engine has done that. He just taught the engine how to do it. It's like a student and the lecturer or the professor or whatever. Alex is the lecturer, the student is the teacher, and the lecturer. The Malevolence and the engine, there goes one of my yanks, is the student. And he basically teaches the engine how to act, how to react, and how to build the game, and how to make it run. He just basically programs the engine by teaching it how to act on its own. It is a sentient AI machine, and that is basically what is happening here. So that is why the world is the same for everybody. That is why, you know, it is procedurally generated, but it's not random. It's the same for everyone. Because the computer has procedurally generated it, but it has built it itself, as opposed to a man actually sitting there and developing and actually building the world. You know, like you have Titan Quest, for example. It works the same way as Diablo, but without the procedural generation of maps. And, you know, so the entire actual world in Titan Quest was actually handmade by a person. Whilst here, what you have is basically you have the files for the design of weapons, armor, things like that, but there's no actual default set values on any weapons or armor in this game. It is all generated by the engine when it is dropped. Alex has no default values put in, no default levels put in for any items or anything. The engine works entirely on its own initiative and own accord. And that is how this works. And this is why, like, you know, this is unpredictable. You know? And this is why there are such things as such people as beta testers. Because this engine runs on its own. When you implement a new feature, the engine kind of still runs on its own, and it kind of goes a little bit funny sometimes. And you know, through being a tester, I've seen it time and time again where a new feature could be implemented and an error could come up that wasn't there before. It's just the way that it works, and that's why it does take time for updates to come out, because of the game engine running on its own initiative. It is basically creating the game, and it can make mistakes, and you know, it can take time for Alex to find what is wrong, because you know, it's like the professor or the lecturer asking the student, where did you go wrong? And they're kind of scratching their heads and they're not sure, because they're learning. And the engine is exactly the same. This game engine is learning. Alex is teaching it, and it is learning. It is a sentient machine that has created this world, and that is what makes Malevolence so bloody unique. It has never been done before, and people just don't seem to understand this. And you know, I'm trying to talk in the best possible form that everybody that hears this could actually understand it, you know, without going all technical and everything. But that is how this engine works. It runs on its own accord. Alex just simply teaches it how to build the game. At the end of the day, he gives the engine the required knowledge, the required language, the required files to make things visual, such as textures, and you know, the items that you see in your inventory. He gives the engine all those things that it needs, and then teaches it how to use them. That is the difference between Malevolence and randomly procedurally generated games. The randomly procedurally generated games such as Diablo and the likes Yes, they run where the engine thinks of on its own accord by doing, like, you know, with maps and things like that. But there is still an awful lot of man hours put into it and handmade development, such as weapons having default damage, armors having defaults, armor ratings, and levels and strength requirements and things like that. This is where this differs from that, because Alex doesn't give the armors or weapons or anything default values or default levels. The engine itself creates them. The engine itself creates everything within this game. Everything that you see here right now, the engine has made. Not Alex. Alex has not handmade any of this dungeon layout or any of, you know, the weapons that I am creating. He has not handmade any of them. He has simply just given the engine what it requires to make them. That is how it works. And it's pretty mind-boggling. Like, you know, when you know, I was interested, and I actually asked Alex how did it work, and I was absolutely mind-boggled when he told me, and it was just so fucking interesting. And you know, it's just mind-boggling how a new technology like this has been made by someone who is self-taught in computer games development, in programming. It's just fucking fantastic, and it just goes to show that the creativity of the indie developers in the gaming industry today, and it's fucking amazing. And you know, that is how this engine works. And you know, I hope that maybe that has cleared up a few, you know, a few questions that anyone may have had in relation to the engine and how it works, and fucking Ghost Farm and the likes, you know. And you know, I just hope that it clears up a few questions that some people might have. But you know, essentially, that is how the engine works. It's Alex is the teacher, or the lecturer, or the professor, or whatever, and the game engine is his student, and he is teaching it how to make Malevolence, and that is how this works. Really, like, you know, to kind of bottom line it. Right, I just lost an ank. You must have got a critical hit off a lizard man, that's why. I just have to be very cautious at the minute because there's a lot of orcs here. But yeah, that's essentially how it works. So, you know, as I said, I'm going to do a separate video on this because I have a feeling when the time comes that Malevolence goes onto Steam, there's going to be a lot more questions asked, because there's going to be a much broader audience, a much more higher amount of audience for the game. So I think, you know, you're going to have more people that are going to be asking such questions, and you know, it's going to be hard for Alex to reply to all these questions, because it takes time to sit there and explain. Because I remember answering a lot of questions for someone once, and it took me a good half an hour to, you know, a good half an hour. You know, 3/4 of an hour to like type it all out and go through it and make sure that what I said was accurate and everything. And you know, like, when it comes to the time that nice, when the game does go live on Steam, there are going to be more people that will be asking questions and will be wondering exactly how it works. Unfortunately, it's one of the things that, you know, you have to talk about when you're a game developer. So that's why I kind of thought about, you know, maybe doing a sort of video where I explain how the engine works. Like when it comes to the scaling of monsters and the balancing and everything, again, it goes down to the same idea where Alex basically teaches the engine how to scale the monsters, how to scale the levels of the monsters and all their stats and everything. And he teaches it how to do that, and it does that out of his teaching. And of course, programming is programming. You know, programming is very, very difficult. It is very tedious work, and it's very easy. Like, all it takes is one letter or a comma, or say you put a full stop by accident instead of a comma in one line of code, and the whole thing could crash. That's all it takes. So, you know, at the end of the day, Alex is human, just like me, you, and everyone else on this planet. And first time around, when it comes to a build, it's not going to be 100%. You know, that's why we have open beta. This is why this game is an open beta. People can enjoy the game, and yes, you might get the odd bug or the odd, you know, error or whatever, but, you know, Alex will look into it and he'll fix it as soon as possible. And that's why I also want to explain that, you know, it's not easy to teach a machine how to build an infinite world. You know, it's not easy, and I don't think people sort of realise that sometimes. Like in fairness, the community, the Malevolence community, like all the regulars and that, they've all been fantastic. You know, they've supported Alex tremendously throughout the development. You know, and like, everybody's been really nice about it and everything. They've been very, very patient. You know, but to make a game requires patience. You know, and I think we can all agree that, you know, we don't want Alex to rush, because if you rush something, it'll just end up buggy and things like that. Mistakes will be made, and in the coding and everything, and mistakes will be made, and, you know, bugs will take longer to find and everything else. And, you know, like, again, I'm not really talking out to the community here, because, you know, everybody's been fantastic. But for people that, you know, may not be familiar with Malevolence and things like that, I just kind of wanted to point that out. You know, that it's making a game is not simple, and I know that myself, because, as I've said before, I am making a game, and I might be only using the FPS Creator engine, but nevertheless, whether I'm using a much more simpler engine like the FPS Creator engine, it is never easy. Making games is not easy, and, you know, it requires patience, and it requires patience from the audience as well. You know, so I will be doing a video explaining all that and how the engine works and everything, because, you know, I think it might make things a little bit easier for Alex as well, because, you know, he could just sort of pinpoint the video and just say, look, this is kind of like one of the community did this video that explains kind of in layman's terms how the game works and how the engine works and things like that, because that is basically the layman's terms of how the Malevolence engine works and how it's implemented and things like that. So yeah, I've really got my ramble mojo today. But yeah, that's essentially how Malevolence works. It's like a student that's being taught how to make a game, and it works out of its own accord, its own initiative, its own wisdom, its own intelligence. You know, it's very interesting. I think, you know, maybe that's because I'm someone that wants to make games. Maybe I'm finding it more interesting because of that. I don't really know. But you know, I think it's absolutely amazing that, you know, essentially a new technology has been made when it comes to the development of Malevolence. I think that it really is amazing. You know, I mean, it takes balls. You know, it takes balls to do something new like this. It takes a lot of guts and that to do this, because, you know, something like an infinite world has never been done before. Therefore, there's no record of, you know, where there's a possibility of how successful it will be or anything like that, because it has never been done before. So there's no market research because it's never been done before. There's nothing that you can really do other than make it and see how it goes, because, as I said, like, it's never been done before, so you can't market research something that hasn't been made previous to you making it. So you're essentially creating something brand new, and you're taking a shot in the dark as to whether how well it will sell or whatever. It's the same with any product, or just say you created a brand new invention. If it's a brand new invention that has never been developed before, or has no similarities to anything that has been developed before, you're taking a shot in the dark as to its popularity and things like that. That's just the way that the world works. It's the way the gaming industry works. It's the way business works. You know? So, yeah. That's, you know, my little rant about that one. Anyway, you know, it's, I find the behind the scenes and the way that Malevolence actually works behind the scenes, I find it actually very fascinating, because again, it's never been done before, so it's very, very interesting. And, you know, absolute and utter kudos to Alex, because, as I said, he has created something that has never been done before. There's no way to kind of research how it would go, or, you know, there was no way of estimating that there's a possibility of it working out this well or that well. You know, he just went with it and did it, and it takes balls, like, particularly in this day and age and this world. It takes absolute balls to do that. So, you know, I have utmost respect, and, you know, as someone that wants to make games as well, I have absolute utmost respect for Alex, and, you know, it takes guts to do something that you have done before, you know, or that nobody has done before. So, you know, he really deserves a lot of credit. You know, so, yeah, that's the end of that little rant anyway. No, it wasn't a rant. That would be wrong in me saying that it was a rant. It was just more of kind of a ramble, not a rant. It was a ramble. Oh, I'm running low on space. I'll just drink these two since this place is empty now. Well, at least losing an ink kind of made a bit more room in my inventory. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. You know, I think my brain is beginning to slow down a little bit now, so the rambling is like, this is the third episode I have done in a row, like taking maybe a 5-minute break in between each, but I think my brain is starting to slow down a little bit. It's not quite as active as it was when it comes to rambling, but there is another floor. But yeah, you know, it's there is no other game out there like this, folks. Let me just say that now. And there may never be another one. You know? There may never be another one. That's just... it's what makes Malevolence so unique. In so many different ways. You know, but... Malevolence's uniqueness is only but one of its many fantastic features. You know, it's only one of the many, and yeah, you know, I mean, I've said all this before, you know, so I don't really want to keep repeating it, but you know, the game is so well done that it represents everything that made old school RPGs good, and that has been just hit right on the head. You know, it's had the nail hit right on the head with it. You know, and it's just fantastic. You know, I can't really fault Malevolence in any way. You know, and that's quite an achievement considering the game hasn't even reached version 1.0 yet. I mean, right now, the game is good enough to be a game on its own. In my opinion. Like, you could technically release this as a game now and call it version 1.0. You could, because it's got a lot in it. Like, you know, there'd be no sort of, you know, there'd be no shame in saying, right, here's my game, up you go, enjoy. But Alex has so much more still to implement into this, you know. But right now, as it stands, still in open beta, it is a game in itself, without all the features yet to be added in. You know, it's phenomenal. I mean, I've played a couple of games that have been in early access on Steam, and you know they're in open beta or early access or whatever. Early access and beta is technically the same thing. It's just on Steam they call it early access, and there are so many games on Steam now that are just in early access, and I took one shot in the dark one day, and the game was far from early access. It was you know, it had a lot in it, but it was buggy as fuck. There was a lot of bugs, there was a lot of things that didn't work properly, and they basically released it on Steam and, you know, as early access, and it was very disappointing to the point that it was playable, but you came across a lot of problems whilst you were playing it. Whilst Malevolence, you know, there are very few outstanding bugs in this game. Like, I think this game runs fantastically. It really does, for a game that's still in open beta. And what that boils down to is, you know, it's the fact that after each update, like, you know, before an update is released to the public, the testers try to find all the bugs as quickly as possible and have them sort of nipped on the bud before it's released to everybody on the public build. But it's not always possible. Like, you know, like some guys get bugs that others won't, and things like that, and that's the way it works. But then, if there's any that's picked up by guys who play this on the public build, Alex just nips the bud straight away and just tries to get rid of it as quick as possible, and he sticks in a hotfix, and that's the way it works. And Malevolence has turned into just a fantastic game because of that. Like, as I said, this is a playable game on its own without all the features put in, and it's only going to get better and better and better. But anyway, as I said, and I was correct, this floor is a little bit smaller, but still, we got another one to go to. So I am going to leave it there, guys, for this part. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one, and we shall continue our journey in the next part. Thank you, and have fun.